Hi, I'm Steve Spencer from SMB Capital. And today I kind of want to walk you through a stock that I shorted following an earnings report and walk you through the process of how I developed the idea, how I shared the idea in the pre-market during our morning meeting, and walk you through a little bit about the execution on the trade. So this is an example of shorting a stock that has an earnings gap, meaning they had an earnings report after the market closed yesterday. Market participants seem to like that report, and it gapped higher. The stock is RHT, Red Hat. If you look at the report, it wasn't that impressive. On the earnings per share side, there was a slight beat, a little bit there, and they beat by a little bit on the revenue. For the next quarter, they guided up a penny from estimates, and they also did a slight guide up on revenue. So the guidance was about 1 to 2% above where estimates were for next quarter. Now the stock in the pre-market was gapping up more than 5%. So basically, my mindset was, okay, decent report, slight guide higher. My expectations in that scenario is stock might be up a little bit, might be down a little bit, and then we'll go from there. But if a stock is gapping up a lot on something like that, I'm skeptical. Now, part of the reason may have been a bunch of different analysts raising their price targets, getting very excited about that report, and that may have been what was driving somewhat the prices in the pre-market. So stocks gapping up more than I expect based on the report. What I want to do is I want to take a look at the daily chart, the longer time frame, and say, hey, is it in an area where the risk reward is good on the short side, meaning is there going to be good supply where it is gapping to? If we look at the daily chart, it's very clear that in late 2015, on several occasions, the stock got up to around 52.80 and failed. The third time, it actually failed there 3 times. The fourth time, it was above there for a day or two. The following day, gap below, and then just got crushed with the weakness in the market at the beginning of 2016. So anybody who was buying in the last 6-8 months in this stock, 60s, low 70s, they see it up here today in the 82 to 83 area. That's a spot where you want to take profits. And so luckily, it was gapping right into that area. So that's something that I'm going to consider, long-term resistance. Another thing, intraday, once the trade unfolds, is the first move going to be is the first move going to be down? If the first move is down and I'm short from a good price, what I can do is I can book profits, and then I can step back and use kind of my intraday tape reading skills to find spots to re-enter and to look for a trend that day to the downside. And part of my process, I wanted to put this on here as well, is part of the process when I'm going through something gaps up earnings, I want to make sure there's not a crazy, really big short float. In this case, there's very small. You can see that picture right there is from the S&P scanner, RHT. We look, we see it was gapped up over 6%. But if you see FS percentage, the float short is extremely low. Gets above 10, that's fairly high. Above 20, you have to be careful. But in this case, very low float short, so I didn't have to worry about that big squeeze right on the open. So let's take a look at the intraday and kind of how I traded it. Oh, by the way, in addition to looking at the intraday chart here, how we kind of executed this trade, you're also seeing a snippet from our morning written game plan, which is something that we put out before we actually do the audio video morning meeting, where I say, here's the ticker, these are the support levels I'm looking at, these are the resistance. In this case, I also had short notes, wasn't that impressed with the earnings. The actual trading plan, that's blank because in the actual meeting itself, that's when I'm discussing the trading plan. So what we can see here is on the intraday chart, I circled that first area by the top blue line. That's right at that 82, 80 to 83 area where I wanted to short it. It actually popped there, I think right as we were doing the morning meeting before the market opened, so my offers got taken. And as the market opened, the first move was down. What we can see is it actually in the first 15 minutes went all the way down to $80 from that 83 right before the market opened. So I got completely flat, and then I waited for what we call as a retracement to come back into an area where I could see some resistance. I started to look at it around 81 to 81.5 to see if it kind of formed a resistance where there was a seller, and it did below 81.50, so that was the re-entry. And then basically from there, watch the rest of the day. Could it take out that morning low? It did, and covered some more as it came back down to that morning low, have a little bit overnight. Tomorrow what I'll do again is I'll look to short from an intraday perspective and eventually get that target area from the written game plan. You can see 78.50 was kind of my next support, which would be about 4.5 points below where I topped out in the pre-market, and that's a pretty good risk reward from the swing side. And I also circled a little area above where I shorted it, above 83.5, where that was my spot to actually, my stop out to reassess. So from a risk reward standpoint, 60 to 70 cents of risk, depending where you entered, for a few points of downside, a really good risk reward. So hopefully that kind of walks you through a little bit of the process of a good candidate to short on an earnings gap up and some of the things that we look at. These are things we discuss every single day. And by the way, this position updates in SMB real time. This is what it looks like. You can see right now I'm still short a little bit, but during the day when we enter in positions, you can see us enter into the positions. As we add to them, you can see as we add. As we scale off of the positions, you can see us scale out. So it's a very useful tool to see some of the traders on the desk doing that in real time. And then of course the morning meeting is something that we do every day before the market opens. I hope that you learned something and that this was useful. Thanks.